Today we've got Barbara Schmelzer, who's a book restorer from Sydney and who worked on the Phillip Voyage book that she'll be talking about over the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. There'll be opportunity for questions after if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask Barbara. So I'll just hand over to you, Barbara. Thanks.
I should give my notes out. Thank you, Michael. Very nice introduction. All my training happened more or less in Germany with a little bit in the UK. The British Library and the Conservation Department at the Victoria and Albert Museum. And then I moved to New Zealand and did a little bit of conservation there at the National Museum and the Archives of New Zealand. And yeah, now I have moved to Sydney. I've been here for about 7 years and got my studio in Brook Bay, which is north of Manly, and you're all very welcome to visit if you're up in Sydney. Just give me a call and come by, have a look. Right, here we go. Philip's Voyage. This is the before and the after, as a little introduction. Also, before I start, there is a bit of bookbinding terminology in my talk you might not be familiar with. I'm very happy for you to interrupt any time to clarify whatever, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'll try and tell you what it is, and I'm sure we can easily find our way back because after all I've got it all written down. The book, about 3 years ago, the University of Wollongong approached me with a request to carry out a conservation work on a volume of the Voyage of Governor Phillip to Botany Bay. A first edition from 1784, which had been donated to the university. The book, as you all know, contains a huge amount of plates depicting Australian flora and fauna, as well as maps and people. Unfortunately, as you can see, the book, even though very valuable, was not in great condition. Attempts have been made to repair the spine with gaffer tape. Wonderful. Bookbinders are always extremely impressed with the layman's repair. Oh, it's all the sellotape inside. Lots of money. Just bring it down. Take it. Photos. So here is again our, as it arrived at the university. Those pictures were taken by Michael. You can see the those water stains as well, where I don't know what exactly, there's some sort of crystalline deposit that came out with the water stains. And here I have attempted, it's my first attempt to see what's under the gaffer tape, which was a very deteriorated spine. And the book block had split in the middle, and you can see that quite well here as well. So we had a total split through the book on that place. The worst damage, of course, was the water damage, as you know. So I suppose it was a leak or a flood, but more likely a flood, as it all sort of happened from underneath the book and soaked into it, not from the top. And it's spread. Here is another picture of how deteriorated the leather on the spine was. You get a good idea that there's no way you can get this off in one piece. It just falls apart. And the spine label had been lost as well, but still gave me enough of an idea how the original spine label ended up. That's a picture of the split. And here we have got some pictures of the water damage. Especially the breast on the front end. So the breast was on the front. Here I've got some pictures because we had a visitor. I don't know if you can see him, but we'll just call him the man in the book after a while because he was on many of the pages. Did you see him? There's a nose.
Oh, yes.
There's a nose. He was on all of the front pages, a real ghost, and it's just very it's like a real face. He was through there all the way. The man in the book, canyon for some time. Okay, then we have, this is a picture of the end paper, also very, how shall I say, very porous at the end. You can see it's all delaminating, the mold had eaten away a lot of the fibers that hold the paper together, all became very, very fragile. This is also, you see, mold spores and the end paper, the marbled end paper, delaminating from its support. In those days, the end papers were often made, but the marbled papers were reasonably thin, so they laminated it onto supporting paper to make it a bit thicker and be able to stand up to wear and tear easier. But with the water damage, it's just grit starch paste that they used. They just came apart. And here we have got another moldy page, moldy and water damage. You see all the yellow stains, all the silt that the water brings with it in the flood. You're Australia very familiar with floods, of course. Yeah, it just goes in there, and if you don't wash things straight away, it just stays there. And it's very unsightly stains. After assessing the damage, it was decided that the book was to be pulled, which means it has to be taken apart entirely and to be washed, hopefully to remove or at least improve some of those tide marks, and to prevent any further growth of mold on the pages. The plates needed to be hinged instead of overcast. Now, overcasting is a very old-fashioned way of sewing sections in a book, which are very, how shall I say, generally when you make sections in a book, they are folded and you sew through the back of a section. When they overcast, they're usually single pages and they just use a thread and they just go through the pages. But what that does is you can't open them flat anymore. It restricts them, and over time it just tears at the paper and you get big ugly tears in them, which is not what you want. So we decided not to do that again, but have them all hinged and properly opening. And a lot of new acid-free interleaving would be inserted to protect the plates as well. Here's some more of the damage and this lovely mold. So what we did first was to set up a table outside in the shade on the lawn, and my niece Ruby got a lovely little soft brush and she brushed a lot of the dirt off the book to start off with, so I wouldn't have all those mold spurs in my bindery flying around. Not very healthy. That's the other side of that. And that is a more mechanical damage that some of the maps had. We have got the flood damage, but also the mechanical damage of folding and unfolding and people not being careful. So we could repair those as well, which was good. Now we started, after we had taken the book apart, which was very hard because of all the load sewing, took a long time, we started washing all the pages. And what you see here is just really immersing some of those pages into one of the baths. And checking them, and you see my bookbinder here as well. Very messy, but reasonably comfortable. Now, to begin with, yeah, we had to set up the table outside, and then I soaked off all the old leather from the spine and pulled the book apart into all single pages where it was single. And we started washing, and to do the washing, of course you know all when paper gets wet, you can't pick it up anymore, it just totally gets soft and it loses all its strength and tears. So what you have to do to wash paper is there's a special fabric that's called remay, which bookbinders and conservators also use to put between pages when they get fixed, because paper doesn't stick to it, nor does wheat starch. And you make a sandwich and you put the pages in that sandwich so that when you take it out of the water, water runs off, but the paper is very well protected in that sandwich of remay. And that is probably I would say that's probably a third or fourth bath, and that would be probably a second one, but you can still quite well see how yellow that still is. And the first two baths were just total yellow. It was amazing what came out of those pages. So a lot of dirt. Yeah. So we had to, order a whole roll of remake for the job. We had a huge amount of blotting paper, 3 reams of blotting paper, and large photographic trays to get the pages in there. So on the fourth bath, the water was buffered with calcium hydroxide saturated solution. That is to reconsolidate pages and to make it also pH neutral at preferably around about pH of 8. Washing picture. He's really very happily working away again. After washing, there were pages all over my 93 square meter studio, which is reasonably big, but everywhere, in all kinds of stages of wetness, and medium wetness and dryness. And I really started to appreciate that in books from that time, there always is a printed list of illustrations and where they go for the bookbinder, and in those days they were still binding them in. If you don't have that, you have to number them where they go, and I didn't have to do that, so, which was great. So they were really all over the place. Once all the pages had dried properly, they were put into the correct order again. We then started on the paper repairs. Many of the mold damaged pages needed to be lined with a thin Japanese tissue to stabilize them, which means some of them we lined the whole page and some of them part of the page to be able for you to use the book again and turn the pages without them falling apart. There were also losses, as you could see with the pictures of the end papers which needed filling in. I've actually brought you along a sample, and we can send that around, which is just the paper repair sample, so you can see how that works with repairs, which is one of them is up here. It's just very thin Japanese tissue, and that is what I talk about, losses and infilling of losses. It's a page of an old German Bible, which in Germany they throw away sometimes. So you can leave them for samples and showing people how to do it. Once the paper repairs were carried out, pages were fashioned into sections with Japanese paper and then re-sewn onto hemp cord. Oh, let's go back to the washing. I'm sorry. I've got before and after shots. Kindly, Michael did some more pictures for me so you can see how much of the dirt we could shift or not shift. So the man in the book has definitely receded a bit, and a bit less ghosting there. And you can see quite well here also that infill and new repair on that page. But unfortunately the real damage there of the mold, does not shift. That is a fixed decoloration, unfortunately. And here we've got our favorite, the New Holland goatsucker. But there you get a very, I don't know, what do you think that is called these days? Is it still got that name? Google it. Gorgeous bird though. But yeah, again you can see really well how much of the dirt had shifted. The before is on top, of course. And a lot of the brown stuff came off on this page. You can see there's a lot of the silt and the browning had washed out as well, which also dirty into brown. Right, and then of course we'll go on to the book covers. That is sort of pretty much dealing with the book block. I didn't take, unfortunately, any pictures of sewing the book block again onto cords because I didn't expect to do a talk on it like this. So you just got to believe me that I did a lot of sewing onto cords. So this is again the binding as it arrived, less the gaffer tape. But you get a very good idea again about the sort of the mineral deposit that came out of it and the deterioration of the spine. And both boards had come off as well entirely.
That's fine. Is it all gone, or is it just moved into? That's just a remnant of what was originally there.
Yeah, most of it is there, but the leather is in such a deteriorated state that I could not get that off.
So it has actually combined with.
It's just as soon as you try and lift it, it just shatters into little bits and pieces. And then there is no point in spending that time lifting it off and then putting it on again, just so when every time you deal with the book, a whole lot of it falls off again. So there comes a point where you really can't do much about it anymore, unfortunately. Here's a shot of the tear that we had in one of the boards of the leather. Wonder how that happened. See? Yeah, that's the side that's up as well, so you can check out the repair. And that is recovering the spine. So what we do as bookbinders, we make up a new spine piece, leather, and we lift the original leather. You can see it on the top. It gets very gently lifted, so we can insert the leather underneath. Again, if you later on have a look at the book, you can see very well there's a thin strip of the new leather that is, well, we have got a new spine, but where it goes in underneath. Also, you can see that the new silk end bands. The book had lost its end bands from what I remember. I can just go back and look. Yep, can't see anything anymore. But I did find remnants of silk inside the pages, which I think we kept, and they're in there as well. So I chose similar coloured silk to make new end bands. Headbands, end bands. You can see there. And what you can see on there is the wheat starch that we paste that we use to glue leather with, because it makes the leather very supple and you can easily move it and move it around all the edges and make nice head caps. And otherwise, leather can be quite stiff, as everyone knows. Oh, and what you can see very well here is, as I was saying, we decided to hinge all the plates, so we had to glue them together into sections, and you can see all that Japanese paper in the back there, that white ridge. That's all the hinging, all the new Japanese paper that's in here, so we can now properly open the book. This is a picture of the spine after I had glued it on, and I had to dye it so that it would sort of at least roughly go with the book, because we buy all our new calf from, I buy my calf from a German bookbinding dealer supplier, and it comes in a natural tan colour, so I can dye it to the book that I needed to dye it to, because all these old books, they're never the same, it seems. Very tricky. And here the book is in my gilding press. Unfortunately, again, I have no pictures of me actually gilding, but you can see my gilding stove here. That's where the tools get heated up on. And it is all, the gilding is all done with 24 karat leaf gold. It's got very, very thin gold. You don't have to say, "Don't open the door!" Something will fly away. And those are all brass tools. Mostly they are also still from the 19th century, because when you buy them now, they're very expensive. They have to, and plus the engraving skills are not the same anymore as they used to be. The tools from the 17th, 18th, and 17th, 18th century that have survived 19th century as well, they were made with much more care for bookbinding, so that all the the way they set them up, you can see where you're going. Quite often with modern tools you can't see anymore, and then it's much harder to do the tooling. The tools get heated up to about 80 degrees, between 80 and 120, depends what you do. You usually do an impression first, then you have to put your carrier in, then you put your leaf gold on top, and then you have to go on top of it once more with a very steady hand, with good pressure, just like that, and hope that you're there.
We should have videotaped that.
Yeah, in retrospect I could have probably, would have been nice to see a little bit more of the gold tooling and how that works. And here is the completed book in my library. Now I've had, let's have a look what the next picture is. Yep. I've had one more through over the last 2 months. This is the same book. It might be a different edition, but I don't think it is. It had been totally rebound. It belongs to a gentleman in Sydney, but those books are very accident prone. This one met with a dog. I was saying, I thought, my God, how come it's the same book again? But this time I didn't. I just, with a little bit of wood, paper pulp, I just leveled out the missing bits and pieces and put a piece of leather in and made it reasonably, unseen. And that's it. So now we have got questions, or we can go back to the questions.
Barbara, the New Holland goat sucker is now known as an owlet nightjar.
Sorry, is it?
Owlet nightjar.
Owlet nightjar. It's just as great a name, look for it. Owlet nightjar. There you go.
The original leather covers on our edition, could you just go back? They seem to have a certain, almost a marbling texture on it. Is that natural?
This one?
Yeah.
No, it's
the
called
texture.
a flame leather. It is marbled, but you need to use chemicals. I had to for your book again as well. To make the updates fine, I had to go back and read up on all the old bookbinding journals how they used to do it and what chemicals they used to use. They are quite acidic, those chemicals, unfortunately.
So
but
it
books
is
survive for
an effect that's been put onto the leather.
very much 19th century effect that they like. Yeah, you see quite a lot of flame marbled or flame tree sometimes too, where the whole effect looks like a tree, and the you've got a stem in the middle and it branches out.
It looks like a walnut pearl effect.
It does in a way, yes, yeah. But that's not naturally on the leather. There is definitely a bookbinder's effect that they favoured at the time.
So Barbara, how long did this project take?
Well, you had the book back, what did you say, after 6 months, 7 months?
I think it was about that.
Or maybe even a bit longer. It took quite a while. It took a long time for... We were talking about this earlier. When you get a project like this, then sometimes there is a gestation period, that's what I call it. Because I have to look at the book and I have to have it there for a while till I sort of decide how I want to approach that particular problem and what I really need to do. Can I get away with not washing the pages? Can I, treat the mold in situ, or will that take just as long but not be as effective as washing and treating? So what we did first to treat the mold, when the pages were all taken, the book was all taken apart and I had the single pages, we sprayed every page and every mold with a mixture between ethanol and water to treat the mold before we washed the pages. I sort of departed from my beautiful script here, but then I left that part out.
So what would have been the consequences for not taking action?
The mold would have eventually stained all the pages with that. See, those what we still have left here. That would have just gotten worse and worse. And you still can see on those pictures all those mold spurs there. But quite a lot of it was actually brushed off, but they were in there. And if that started again, it might have been arrested because you've got good conditions here in the library, and not much more might have happened. But it's always a guess, and suddenly it has a little bit of humidity that comes in. We live in a subtropical climate. It's very hard on paper. We could have well started again, and it's always, the book is quite valuable and probably will still increase in value, so it's perhaps a good thing to have that precaution to make sure they cannot happen again.
I was wondering, with the leather borders had the split, did you recover that in leather, or how did you deal with that? The sort of
It's just behind you there in the case.
yeah.
See that split up there, the little tear? I lifted the leather very gently and I inserted leftover leather from that I had dyed for the spine anyhow in that particular color. So we put a little bit of very thin leather underneath there just to make it look a bit better.
I was wondering, what happened to, what did you do with the original spine? Is it still on it? Or did
No,
you
it was
remove it?
totally disintegrated by taking it off. There's
Yes.
nothing you can do. If I have an original spine that can be put back on, I'll put it back on. Goes back on book. But that wasn't possible. That was just too far gone.
So how many hours of washing of the pages was there? Like, and
Don't
how
ask
did you
I know what I know how much I allocated in my quote, but I gave up counting once we had used double the amount of hours. I stopped counting.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very laborious and long. And as I've said earlier, I estimated that I would get away with 2 washes and then do the buffering last wash, and we needed 3 washes, and then, which is the book has how many pages? 400 something.
Yeah, 460 or something. It was a fairly thick book.
Yeah.
Were the pages numbered? Because
Yes.
you can imagine otherwise
They are.
the flow would have been
Yeah,
around
yeah.
there.
No, the pages are numbered, and as I said, there is a list of illustrations as well to where things go.
Barbara, what do you do if you, when you're restoring something like this, if you notice there's a page missing?
You notify the client.
You can say,
First of all, say, I think there's a page missing. Did you know that? No, but it's missing. What can we do? State Library. Go to the State Library and have a copy taken or a scan and then print it out. Some bookbinders go to the extent that they make it look so original. They'll have a scan done of the page. They will have a block made, which is a big, not aluminium, I can't remember what the metal is, but we often as bookbinders have to block things, when you get a book that has a title on there in a fancy design. It will be a block, a magnesium block quite often, that gets pressed into the book with a high heat and with a hot foil, so you can use all kinds of colors. So you get your fancy perfume. That's how it works. How it's been done as well on the boxes. And they'll go to the extent to have a block made from their page, original size and everything, and they'll ink it and they'll print it on a very similar paper on both sides, and it'll just look like the original. But then if you're an honest bookbinder or an honest forger in that regard, then you have to sign that page and say that it's not original.